Emma Parker had always believed that life changed slowly, like seasons sliding from one color to another, but the night everything shifted for her didn't feel slow at all. It felt sudden, sharp, and unforgettable. The kind of moment that rewrites everything you think you know about yourself and the people around you. She had moved to Vancouver a little less than a year ago, leaving behind a life that had grown far too predictable, craving silence, independence, a place where she could breathe without someone asking why she looked tired or why she wasn't smiling more. Vancouver felt like a reset button: clean air, quiet evenings, tall glass buildings reflecting the sky, and the gentle hum of a city that never felt too loud. Her apartment building was older but warm, filled with people who mostly kept to themselves, which suited her just fine. She liked her routine: wake up, work, cook something simple, read, sleep, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but at least it was peaceful, though the only thing she couldn't quite figure out was her neighbor, Daniel Hayes, who lived right next to her and whom she saw almost every morning on her way down the stairs, hands in his pockets, eyes tired but kind, looking like someone carrying a story he wasn't ready to tell anyone, not even himself. He was polite, always gave her a quiet good morning, but never more than that, the type of man you didn't notice at first glance until you did, and then you couldn't stop noticing because there was something about him she didn't understand, something hidden she wanted to ask about but never found the courage to. Maybe the way he avoided long conversations or seemed to disappear for hours without explanation. Yet despite his quiet nature, there was a certain steadiness about him that made her feel strangely safe without knowing why. On the night that changed everything, Emma had stayed late at work. Winter evenings came early in Vancouver, and by the time she stepped off the bus, the streets were dark and glistening with fresh rain, her head aching softly from too many emails, deadlines, and problems she pretended she didn't feel. She carried her bag tightly against her chest and hurried home, ready for nothing more than warm socks and a blanket. But halfway up the stairs of her building, she felt something strange. At first just a light pressure around her temples like fatigue pressing in. Then her breath tightened, vision blurred around the edges. "Not now," she whispered, gripping the cold metal railing, trying to steady her breathing, but her body refused, knees softening, a wave of dizziness sweeping through so quickly she barely had time to react, the stairway tilting, walls stretching, ears ringing, and before she knew it her legs gave way. She expected to hit the ground hard but she didn't. Instead, strong arms caught her, warm enough to cut through the cold air. A voice reaching her, soft, calm, gentle but steady, like someone who had handled emergencies before. "Emma, hey, I've got you." Even through her dizziness she recognized the voice. Daniel. She blinked, trying to steady her sight, his face hovering inches from hers, not romantic but focused, concerned, his usually distant expression gone, replaced by real worry. "Can you breathe?" he asked, voice low and soothing. She nodded weakly though her chest felt tight, hands trembling. "You're okay," he said slower, as if pulling her back to the moment. "You're just lightheaded, let's get you inside." Before she could argue he lifted her carefully, as if she weighed nothing, and guided her up the last few steps. Emma wasn't used to being helped or held, and as embarrassing as it was, a small part of her felt relieved she wasn't alone. Inside her apartment he set her gently on the couch and crouched in front of her, eyes searching hers. "Do you feel sick? Did you eat today?" he asked. She tried to answer but her voice cracked. He didn't push, simply sat next to her, not too close, giving space but present. Emma leaned her head back, closing her eyes as the dizziness faded, leaving a soft thumping in her chest, half from the scare, half from the unexpected closeness. Daniel wasn't supposed to be part of her life this deeply. He was just a neighbor, but now he was sitting on her couch watching her with unfamiliar, comforting focus. "You scared me," he admitted quietly. She opened her eyes, surprised. "I scared you," she said with a weak laugh. "I'm the one who almost fell down the stairs." He smiled slowly, like he wasn't used to letting it out. "Yeah, but I was right there. That was almost a disaster." The soft, honest, almost protective way he said it made something warm spread through her. For a moment neither spoke, the room peaceful, rain tapping gently against the windows. "Do you want water?" he asked, breaking the silence. She nodded, and he moved around her kitchen like he'd been there 100 times, filling a glass with surprising care and bringing it back. Emma took sips, color returning to her cheeks. "I'm okay now, thank you," she said softly. "You don't have to thank me, anyone would have helped," but she shook her head. "No, not anyone. Some people would have walked past, some wouldn't have noticed." His eyes lowered as though her words hit deep. "I notice more than people think," he said quietly. There it was, the first hint of the mystery she'd sensed for months. A sudden thought surprised her. If he hadn't been there at that exact moment, what would have happened? It was strange, almost unsettling how fate worked, 1 second alone and falling, the next in the arms of the person she least expected to rely on. Daniel stayed longer to make sure she was stable, not rushing or impatient, just present in a quiet way that made her feel safe. When he finally stood to leave, he paused by her door. "If you feel dizzy again, call me, don't try to get up alone." "I don't have your number," she reminded. He hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty, then took out his phone. "You do now," reading it out as she typed. The moment felt small yet heavy with something unspoken. After he left, Emma sat alone replaying everything. The way he caught her, said her name, the worry in his eyes, softness in his voice, warmth of his hands. Something had shifted undeniably, quietly, powerfully. She didn't know what it meant yet, but couldn't shake the thought that her mysterious neighbor was not just a neighbor anymore, and she wasn't sure if that excited or terrified her. Either way, everything had changed and nothing would go back. The morning after, Emma woke with a strange ache in her chest, not from dizziness but from the memory of how Daniel had held her gently, protectively. She replayed it over and over because his touch and the look in his eyes stayed with her. Still on the edge of her bed, she heard a soft knock. No one knocked that early, no one ever checked on her. Opening the door, there he was, Daniel, holding steaming tea and wearing the same quiet concern, looking like he hadn't slept much but chose to come to her first. "Good morning," he said gently. "I brought you something warm, thought it might help." Emma blinked, surprised he remembered she liked tea, though she'd never told him. He must have noticed grocery bags or the smell from her apartment. The thought he paid attention quietly warmed her more than the drink. "That's really kind," she said, stepping back to let him in. She didn't know why she trusted him so easily now, but the previous night had erased the wall between them. Daniel walked in slowly, as if unsure he was welcome, eyes scanning the room, not judging, just observing, his presence calm, steady, grounding. For the first time in months, Emma didn't feel loneliness pressing. They sat at the small table near her window, morning light stretching across the floor like a soft invitation to talk. Neither spoke at first, waiting. Finally Daniel broke the silence. "How are you feeling? Is the dizziness better?" "Yes. Much better, thank you again." He shook his head with a faint smile. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad you're okay." She studied him, noticing how tired he looked emotionally, like carrying a weight for years, and to her surprise he didn't hide it. Instead he sat back, took a breath and spoke unplanned. "I'm not usually good at showing up for people, but last night I couldn't just walk past you." The confession dropped like a small truth with heavy meaning. Emma felt something warm, human, real shift in her chest. "Well, I'm glad you didn't, because I didn't know what would have happened otherwise." He looked down at his hands. "I'm just glad I was there." But his tone hinted at more he wasn't ready to share. Wanting to ease tension, she changed the subject. "So have you lived here long?" He nodded. "About 8 months, moved from Seattle." "Why Vancouver?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Needed a change. New place, new job, new everything." She sensed a painful story but didn't push, instead sharing a little about moving from Boston after a rough year when everything fell apart. It surprised her how easy it was to open up to him. Usually she kept struggles to herself, but with him words flowed naturally. They talked almost an hour, and in that conversation something subtle, unspoken began forming. An understanding, a connection neither expected but both quietly welcomed. Over the next few days their doors opened more often, small greetings turning into long, effortless conversations. Daniel would check on her in evenings, sometimes bringing tea, sometimes just asking how her day went at the doorway. Emma found herself looking forward to those moments. Not because she was falling for him, but because for the first time in a long time she didn't feel invisible. One night after a long day she found Daniel waiting in the hallway, hands in pockets, looking like he'd been debating knocking. "You look tired, did something happen?" She sighed, leaning against the wall. "Just work stress, nothing big." He nodded, then surprised her. "Have you eaten?" She shook her head. "Come on, let's get something simple, there's a small diner 2 blocks away." It felt natural walking beside him, cool night air brushing past through quiet streets. The diner was warm with smells of fresh soup and soft music. They sat by the window, and before she knew it she was laughing. Actually laughing. Something she hadn't done in a while. Daniel wasn't trying to impress, wasn't overly charming or confident, but genuine, making her feel safe in a way she wasn't used to. She noticed every time she smiled his eyes softened, like seeing her happy gave him quiet relief. When she reached for a napkin her fingers brushed his hand. Small, accidental, but it sent quick warmth through her. She pulled back, embarrassed, but he didn't react negatively. just looked at her with a brief unreadable flicker. On the walk home he seemed quieter, thoughtful, as if her presence stirred something he hadn't allowed in a long time. At their doors he paused. "I like spending time with you more than I expected." Emma felt her heart flutter nervously. "I like it too," she admitted, but then a shadow crossed his features, sudden distance in his gaze as if remembering something painful. Before she could ask, he stepped back. "Emma, there are things about me I don't talk about, things I don't want to hurt you with," she frowned. "Daniel, you don't have to protect me from anything." He shook his head. "It's not that. I just don't want to ruin something good." The words hit hard. "Why would you ruin anything?" she asked gently. He looked away, hands tightening. "Because the last time I cared about someone it didn't end well." There it was, the pain she'd sensed. Emma stepped closer without touching. "You don't have to tell me, not until you're ready." He looked at her with quiet longing he seemed scared to show. For a moment he almost reached for her hand, fingers twitching, then pulled back. "I need some time," voice low and conflicted. She nodded, though the sudden space hurt. "Take all the time you need." He nodded softly, then paused before entering his door. "Emma, please don't think I'm pulling away because you did something wrong. I'm pulling away because I'm scared of getting close." And then he disappeared, leaving her in the dim hallway wondering why someone with such a gentle heart carried so much fear. In the days that followed, Daniel remained kind but distant, still greeting, offering small smiles, but easy closeness faded into short conversations and hesitant glances. Emma didn't push, though she missed the warmth, reminding herself he needed time. Yet every night one question echoed. What had hurt him so deeply he was afraid to let someone care again? And deeper still, was she willing to wait for his walls to come down? Because she already knew Daniel Hayes was no longer just her mysterious neighbor. He was becoming someone far more important. Someone she wasn't ready to lose. The days after he pulled away felt longer. Emma tried pretending everything was normal but felt the distance every time she passed his door. The quiet that once comforted her now felt heavy, like something important had slipped away. She knew he needed space and respected it, but couldn't stop wondering if she'd done something wrong or if he regretted letting her in even a little. Even when they crossed paths, his smile was polite, tone soft, but eyes avoided hers just enough to twist her heart. He still cared, she could feel it, but he was fighting something inside. One night after a long stressful shift, Emma walked home under dim streetlights, mind replaying old conversations, small laughs, quiet moments whose meaning she hadn't realized until gone. Reaching her building, she stood still, wondering whether to knock or keep distance, but noticed a light on the shared balcony flickering softly, almost waiting. Something deeper than hope pulled her forward, the need to understand. She stepped outside, and there he was, leaning against the railing, staring at the glowing skyline, shoulders tense, expression tired, the weight more visible than ever. He didn't notice her at first, giving her a moment to study him quietly. The same man who saved her now looked like he needed saving, breath fogging in cool air, hands deep in pockets, posture defeated, like trying not to fall apart. Emma stepped closer softly. "Daniel." He turned quickly, surprised, and for a moment she thought he might shut down, but something eased when he saw her, like seeing her knocked down the wall he'd rebuilt. "Emma, hey." Voice trembling slightly, though trying to sound calm, she stood beside him, keeping gentle distance. "I couldn't sleep, thought I'd get some air." He nodded, letting out a breath held for days. They said nothing for a while, silence honest and filled with unsaid things. Then Daniel spoke low and raw. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For disappearing on you, for pulling back when we were finally starting to get close." She shook her head gently. "You didn't disappear. You just needed space." He swallowed hard. "It was more than that. I'm scared, Emma," she softened. "Scared of what?" He hesitated, then turned to face her with painful but necessary openness. "Scared of letting someone matter again. The last time I cared I lost everything when it ended." Emma listened without prying, giving the safety he'd given her. "I thought moving to Vancouver would help, thought starting over would fix things." He laughed without humor. "But you can't outrun heartbreak." Emma stepped closer, voice warm but steady. "You don't have to run from anything with me." He searched her face, trying to trust her words himself. Night breeze stirred the air between them. "I care about you more than I expected to, and that scared me because I didn't want to mess it up, hurt you, or get hurt again." Emotion rose in her chest, but she kept it gentle. "You didn't hurt me, you just confused me." He winced. "I know, and I'm sorry for that too." Emma took a slow breath. "Daniel, you don't have to be perfect to be close to someone, you just have to be honest." He looked down, then back. "Well, here I am, honest." Another shaky breath. "When I saw you fall that night I didn't think, I just moved. I haven't cared about anything that fast in a long time. Her heart warmed. I'm glad you were there, I'm glad. You didn't look away. He took a small step closer almost without realizing. I didn't want to, I don't want to now either. Warmth spread deep and steady through her chest like something falling into place. I never asked you to be anything more than yourself. You don't have to pretend you're okay when you're not. Daniel's shoulders dropped. You make things feel easier, and that scares me too because I'm not used to easy. She smiled. Maybe that's the point. For a moment he really looked at her as if seeing her in full clarity, city lights reflecting in his softening eyes. Emma, you didn't deserve the distance I gave you. You just needed time. And now? Voice barely a whisper. Is it too late for me to close that distance? She stepped closer, inches between them. It's not too late, not if you want to try. He exhaled like a years-long weight loosened, shoulders softening, jaw unclenching, looking free enough to start. Slowly, carefully he reached for her hand, fingers brushing, pausing, trembling with hesitation. Can I? Emma slipped her hand into his with quiet confidence. Daniel closed his eyes, a breath of relief escaping. I didn't think I'd be able to do this again. You don't have to do everything at once, just one step at a time. They stood hands intertwined, night cool but their closeness warm, world moving below but everything still and peaceful on that small balcony. He squeezed gently. I don't know where this goes but I want to find out. Emma nodded. So do I. No dramatic moment, just two people choosing to try, trust, stand side by side even with lingering fear. Daniel shifted so their shoulders touched. That night I caught you, it wasn't just about helping you. What do you mean? He looked with new softness. Something in me changed too, like I finally woke up from something I didn't realize I was stuck in. Her heart tightened, alive, connected, hopeful. I'm glad. He looked warm, open, steady. Thank you for not giving up on me. I wasn't going to, not when you've already been there for me. Hands locked, breath steadying together, past and future didn't matter. What mattered was he wasn't pulling away, she wasn't alone, and whatever tomorrow brought they would step into it side by side. Emma gazed at city lights, then Daniel, the mysterious neighbor once distant, now someone she trusted, cared for, who changed her life without trying. And Daniel for the first time in years didn't feel the urge to run. He felt hope. Warmth, the quiet beginning of something real, genuine, healing. Together they stood under the moonlit sky, hands intertwined, hearts slowly opening. No promises, no fears, just two people learning to move forward again. And that night Emma knew with absolute clarity the man who saved her once was now saving himself by letting her in. And everything truly had changed.